Chapter 171. The transformation of the nest into a sanctuary sent a shockwave through the subtle layers of reality. In its domain of endless twilight, the Harbinger felt the loss like a physical amputation. A piece of its territory, a wellspring of nourishing despair, had not been destroyed, but converted star. It was an insult, a perversion of its nature. The silent, formless entity that was the Harbinger shifted its attention fully towards the city and the irritating, mending light of the Ashen Crow. This was no longer a minor nuisance. It was an existential threat. The Warden was not just patching holes. He was changing the fundamental composition of the battlefield. The Harbinger began to gather its strength. It would not send another nest. It would not weaponize another mortal. It would deliver a blow so profound it would drown the city's nascent hope in an ocean of pure, undiluted sorrow. It would summon a tide of lamentation. Chapter 172. Back in the newly created sanctuary. The atmosphere was one of weary triumph. Kaelen sat with his back against the now peaceful grey core, sipping water as his strength slowly returned. This changes everything. Dorian's voice crackled over the comms, buzzing with excitement. You didn't just win a battle. You captured the flag. The energy signature of that location has flipped from a negative to a positive value. It's actively fortifying the veil now, instead of corroding it. It also paints the biggest target imaginable on our backs. Lyra reminded them, though a hint of respect colored her tone. The Harbinger won't take this lying down. Then we prepare. Silas said, his voice firm. We use this place. We fortify it. We link it to the bastion. He looked at Kaelen. Can you do that? Create a network. Kaelen closed his eyes, feeling the gentle pulse of the sanctuary core. He could feel the distant, steady thrum of the bastion deep beneath the city. 2 points of light in the darkness. I think so, he said. But it will take time. And power. Time was a luxury they were about to run out of. Chapter 173. The first sign of the Harbinger's retaliation was a change in the weather. A deep, unseasonal fog rolled in from the edges of the city. A fog that carried a chilling dampness that seeped into the bones and a faint, echoing sound of distant weeping. It was a physical manifestation of low-grade despair. People's mood soured. Petty arguments flared into fights. The city's brief respite was over, replaced by a grinding, communal melancholy. The number of Despair-Lings tripled overnight. They were no longer just in sad places. They were everywhere, fed by the ambient misery. The association was overwhelmed. Its hunters run ragged trying to contain the endless stream of minor phantoms. Obsidian Star was stretched to its limit. They moved from district to district, Kaelen using his empathic resonance to create temporary safe zones. His risen army cutting down the weakened phantoms. But it was a holding action. They were bailing out a boat with a thimble. The tide was rising, and they were standing on the shore. Chapter 174. Kaelen knew they couldn't keep this up. They were reacting, not acting. The Harbinger was attacking the entire city, and they were trying to heal each individual scratch. He needed to strike at the source, but the Harbinger had no physical form to attack. It was a distributed consciousness. Its presence spread thin across the fog, its core hidden in its own desolate dimension. The only way to hurt it was to attack its connection to this world. The fog was that connection, a bridge of sorrow it had built. We have to sever the bridge, Kaelen told the team during a brief respite in the bastion. We have to push back the fog. And how do we do that? Jax asked, looking exhausted. With a giant fan. With a bigger hope. Kaelen said, his eyes alight with a desperate plan. The bastion and the sanctuary, they're anchors. But they're not enough. We need to create a moment. A citywide surge of positive emotion so powerful it acts as a firewall against the despair. It was an insane idea. How do you make millions of people feel hopeful all at once? Chapter 175. The plan was born of desperation and a deep understanding of the city's psyche. The one thing that had universally brought people together, that had provided a flicker of light in the dark decade since the eclipses began, was its sports team, the Ravens. The city's stadium was a secular temple, a place where, for a few hours, Thousands could forget their troubles and share in a collective passion. The championship game is tomorrow night. Silas said, catching on instantly. The whole city will be watching. It's a double-edged sword. Lyra warned. If they lose, the collective disappointment will feed the Harbinger more than anything we can imagine. Then we make sure they don't lose. Kaelen said, it wasn't about fixing the game. It was about fixing the feeling star. They would use the stadium, the concentration of intense, focused emotion, as a catalyst. They would turn the game into a ritual. Chapter 176. The championship day dawned. The sun a pale, sickly disk behind the oppressive fog. The city was a tinderbox of nervous energy. The game was all anyone could talk about. A fragile distraction from the creeping dread. Obsidian Star's operation was their most complex yet. Silas and Rorik provided security at the stadium. Their real job to secure the rooftop for their purposes. Jax was embedded in the crowd, a catalyst for cheers. Lyra was on the highest perch, her rifle scanning not for physical threats, but for emotional dead zones where Despair-Lings might coalesce. Kaelen stood at the center of the stadium's roof, hidden from view. Below him, 80,000 people were a sea of nervous anticipation. The fog pressed in against the stadium shields. The Harbinger's presence a palpable weight. He was the conductor. The stadium was his instrument. The game was his score. Chapter 177. The game began. The tension was unbearable. Every fumble, every missed shot, sent a ripple of anxiety through the crowd that strengthened the fog. Kaelen could feel the Harbinger pressing closer, eager to feast on the inevitable disappointment. He began his work. He didn't try to control the game. He focused on the emotion itself. When the home team made a good play, he used his empathic resonance to amplify the resulting cheer, stretching the moment of joy, making it brighter, more potent. He wove the collective hope into a shimmering net above the stadium. It was like trying to light a bonfire in a hurricane. The Harbinger fought back. Waves of apathy and doubt washed over the crowd. Kaelen countered, projecting feelings of resilience, of belief, of shared identity. He was a psychic rock star, and the crowd was his amplifier. The game became a proxy war for the city's soul. Chapter 178. With 10 seconds left on the clock, the Ravens were down by 2 points. The ball was in the hands of their star player, a young man named Kaito, known for his clutch performances. The entire city held its breath. This was the moment, the peak of tension, the pivot point between ecstasy and despair. Kaelen saw Kaito's doubt, a flicker of fear magnified by the Harbinger's influence. He saw the collective hope of 80,000 people begin to crumble into the dread of anticipated failure. He acted. He didn't just amplify the hope. He targeted Kaito. He sent a single, pure pulse of unwavering belief, of absolute focus, directly at the young player. It wasn't mind control. It was a gift of clarity, a reminder of his own strength. On the field, Kaito's eyes narrowed. The fear vanished, replaced by a preternatural calm. He feinted, dodged, and launched the ball in a perfect, impossible arc. The buzzer sounded. The ball swished through the net. Silence. For a heartbeat. Then an explosion of pure, undiluted joy that shook the very foundations of the stadium. Chapter 179. The surge of positive energy was a physical force. Kaelen, ready for it, channeled it all. He became a lightning rod for the city's triumph. He took the roaring, ecstatic energy of 80,000 people and fused it with the power of the Bastion and the Sanctuary. He then released it. A wave of brilliant, golden light exploded from the stadium, visible only to those with the sight to see it. It slammed into the oppressive fog. The Harbinger's bridge of sorrow shattered. The fog didn't just recede. It burned asterisk, dissolving under the cleansing fire of collective joy. The echoing weeping was replaced by a citywide cheer. The Despair-Lings populating the city screamed and dissolved into nothingness, their food source violently ripped away. For a single, glorious moment, the entire city was a sanctuary. The Veil fortification percentage on Kaelen's interface jumped to full point. Veil fortification, 3.1%. They had done it. They had turned back the tide. Chapter 180. In its domain, the Harbinger reeled. The backlash from the severed connection was immense. It hadn't just been defeated. It had been scorched by the very emotion it sought to consume. It would recover, but it would be weakened, and it would remember the sting of that hope. On the stadium roof, Kaelen collapsed, utterly spent but triumphant. He was surrounded by his team. Jax was whooping with joy. Lyra offered a rare, genuine smile. Silas placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Below, the city was celebrating, unaware that they had just been soldiers in a war for reality itself. They had won a major victory. But as Kaelen looked out at the celebrating city, he knew the other sovereigns had been watching. They had seen his power, his creativity, his ability to turn the masses into a weapon. He had proven he was more than a nuisance. He was a genuine rival. The Ashen Crow had just won the battle, but in doing so, it had announced itself as a true power in the coming war for the Veil. The quiet days were over.